is Mario Montessori? Well, you booked this course because you wanted to get to know the Montessori method. And the Montessori method was developed by Maria Montessori, Dr. Maria Montessori. Now, at one point in her life, being a young woman and doctor, she was working with, of course, only men. And she had one colleague she especially liked and loved. That was Dr. Montesano. The two were working together. The two were very good in their profession. They were leading out together, doing research together. And so they became closer and closer. But they both were scientists. So somehow Maria Montessori felt if she got married and had children, she would have to stop working for all the other children in the world. And she had been studying medicine just for all the other children in the world, especially for the less fortunate ones. And she wanted to be there for the less fortunate ones, those in the psychiatric hospital and others. What about Dr. Montesano? We don't know very much what were his real intentions. But what we know, that those two young people, two young doctors, two young scientists, they became closer and closer to each other. They came to love each other. But they pledged not to ever get married in their whole lives. What happened? Maria Montessori ended up being pregnant by Dr. Montesano. She really loved him. We know that from her letters and from her diaries. What she has written down, we know that she really, honestly loved him. Now she was pregnant in the 19th century in Roman Catholic Italy. And that was a big scandal, being pregnant without being married. Now, usually what people did was, even if it just happened, the man would get to marry the wife, not yet wife, the girlfriend. And families would force the young people to get married in order to avoid a scandal. But Dr. Montesano was determined not to marry Maria Montessori. And he was being encouraged by his mom. The mother of Dr. Montesano loved her son and thought he was something special. And she did not approve of the relationship with somebody equal to her son. She did not approve of the relationship with Maria Montessori, and she encouraged him not to get married to her. That was actually very, very unusual at that time, because they knew who was the father. It was very clear. But the family and Italy, 19th century, even though they were adults, they were doctors, they were having their careers, it was the family deciding. So the families decided that Maria would give birth in secret and that the baby would be given to foster parents. And nobody would know who was the father of this baby. And Dr. Montesano agreed that if Maria kept her part of the pledge or contract, he would give his family name to the baby to be born. Maria had no say. We have to bear that in mind. She had no say. It's as if today it was a child being pregnant. The family had the say. This is the first point we have to understand. The second point we have to understand is that in Italy of the 19th century, if you had a baby and you were not married, you had, as a woman, just 3 choices. Choice number 1, commit suicide to avoid the shame. That's what actually many women did. Number 2, you keep your baby, you love your baby, you take care of your baby, you become a prostitute. Why prostitute? Because any other profession was not open to a woman having a baby and not being married. The whole society would shun you. It's like a shunning. It's such a big shame. It was such a big shame. It was considered such a big shame. So as soon as you had a baby, not being married, and you stood faithful and true to your baby, you would be an outcast of society, not having the chance to earn your money in any honest way, or even to be a member of society in any regular way. So if you couldn't separate from your baby, women, and that is what really and actually happened in Italy that time, women became prostitutes. That wasn't an option for Maria, who had studied so hard and fought so much. Well, there was one more option: become a nun. Many women, those who couldn't bear the thought of becoming prostitutes, those who wanted to live decent lives, those who wanted to live honest lives, they entered monasteries and became nuns. And at the time in Italy in the 19th century, a lot of women who became pregnant when they were not married, and the fathers of the babies didn't stand true to them, they entered monasteries, they gave birth in the monastery, and the child was very often raised in the monastery in an orphanage attached to the monastery, or in another orphanage attached to another monastery. So the women became nuns. Actually, that was the best solution for women at that time, because being a nun, they could live a useful life, a happy life, a safe life, having enough food, having work, being educated, becoming educated, living in a family-like environment, but of course not as mothers of their babies. Now, going back to Maria Montessori, none of these three options was an option for her. So she agreed to the contract, giving birth to her baby in secret, giving it to foster parents, and the baby having the name of his father, Montesano. She gave birth in a monastery. She came back after a few months, and the baby was given to foster parents, who were distant relatives to her. Now, Maria Montessori, all her life, couldn't bear the thought of having given her son to foster parents and not raising him herself. Now, the foster parents were good foster parents, and she provided with the gifts and with the money and a lot of help to those foster parents, so he didn't lack anything. But it was her son, and she loved him dearly. So she did the only thing she could do else. She visited him on a regular basis and tried to build up a good relationship with him. He was never told who she was. She was auntie, kind of. She brought gifts to him, and she really built a relationship to him. It is when he was 15 years old, I believe he was intelligent enough and bright enough to having found out and figured out himself. So he asked her clearly, "Are you my mother?" And this Maria couldn't resist, and she agreed. She said, "Yes, I am your real mother." Mario, officially Maria Montesano at that time, then fought and wanted to be with his real mom. And because it was still Italy, she couldn't admit that's my illegal son. So she hired him as her personal secretary. And he stayed by her side all the time until he got married when he was only 19 years old. He had 4 children with an American lady. It's when World War II started, or was about to start, that this lady fled. She left Europe and went back to America, leaving the 4 kids with Mario and his mother, Maria. Many years later, he got married to one student of Maria Montessori who had helped to take care of the kids in India. So Mario Montessori was the son of Maria Montessori, and from age 15 he was working with his mother, and he continued working with his mother all his life. He contributed to the research on the methods. And after the death of his mom, he continued to develop her methods further. He dearly loved his mom. Until her death, she never officially recognized him as her son, but in her last will, she recognizes as her son officially. Her last will says that she is leaving all her intellectual property to her son, Mario. So we know for sure that Mario Montessori was her biological son, and we know for sure how the story went from her side. Now, so he learned from her, and he developed the method further, and he published all the books further and all the other publications. He also led training classes for teachers who wanted to become Montessori teachers. He was also leading training classes. And as mentioned before, he's a father of 4 kids. And years after his first wife, the mother of the 4 kids, left him, he got married to another Montessori teacher in India. So that's him. He is the son of Maria Montessori. It's a little bit a sad story of an unfaithful boyfriend who was really unfaithful. We know how much Maria Montessori suffered when she learned that very shortly after Maria and Dr. Montesano broke off, were forced to break off, Dr. Montesano married an uneducated woman who became a real housewife and a mother to many of his kids. And she really saw that he was totally dishonest with her, because he had told her, I never want to get married. I do not want to get married. It will harm my career. I don't believe in marriage. He said marriage is the end of love. That was his saying. So we can understand that this person was really totally dishonest with her, and it really broke her heart. And she never had a man again, a love relationship, because she really suffered from being cheated upon so much. Well, that's the story. I hope it helps you to understand her more. I personally believe that being separated from her son made her to be more and more intense about studying all the best educational methods. She compensated what she was not allowed to do for her son. She compensated it in doing it for other kids, for unfortunate kids who didn't have all the advantages he had. And being separated from him, she needed to compensate all her pain, her broken heart, in doing good and doing the best. Very often that's what's happening. That is a broken heart that will result in doing extremely good. And I think that's a good thing. I personally believe, had I been in her place, maybe I would have done the same. We cannot and we're not allowed to judge what she did, because she really didn't have a choice. It was not our society in the 21st century.